reporter asked Benjamin Netanyahu if he dragged Donald Trump into a war with Iran, and he laughed. Donald Trump is the strongest leader in the world, he said. You don't have to drag him into anything. And the studio audience, Fox News, everyone had to eat it up.
There are people that say, well, the Prime Minister of Israel dragged Donald Trump into it. And as somebody that's been friends with him over 30 years, nobody drags Donald Trump into anything, number one, but I want to get your reaction to that.
Well, you're right. I mean, that's ridiculous. Donald Trump is the strongest leader in the world. He does what he thinks is right for America. He does also what he thinks is right for future generations. And frankly, we're partners in that effort because I've devoted my life to securing the life of the one and only Jewish state. And believe me, it's been a struggle. I've known the pangs of war. I lost a brother in war and in battle. I myself fought terrorists and was wounded in liberating hostages from a hijacked plane. I held a fellow soldier in my arms when I was 18, and he died in my arms. I know the cost of war, but I know sometimes that war is necessary to protect us from the people who would destroy us. And that's what free societies have to understand.
Now I want you to hold that laugh in your head for the next minutes, because by the time we're done here, that laugh is going to feel very different to you. We're going to go back, way back, because this story didn't start on Saturday. This story started 30 years ago, and the same man has been telling the same version of it to every American president willing to listen ever since. Here is the headline that Benjamin Netanyahu has been selling since 1992. Iran is about to get a nuclear weapon. We have to act now, or it's too late. Now let me show you what too late has looked like over the years, because this is where it gets almost comedic. Almost. Except people are dying, so it's not. Since 1992, Netanyahu and his supporters have claimed Iran will become a nuclear power in a few years. In 1995, Israeli officials and their US backers declared a 5-year timeline. In 2003, Israel's director of military intelligence said Iran would be nuclear by the summer of 2004. In 2005, the head of Mossad said, you guessed it, imminent, any day now, time is running out. It is now 2026, that's 34 years of any day now. At some point, they're almost there, stops being intelligence and starts being a subscription service. Every few years, same product, new packaging, slightly higher body count. Before we talk about Iran 2026, we need to talk about Iraq 22. Because this is not a new script, this is a rerun, and Netanyahu is the one who wrote it. In 2002, he walked into the United States Congress as a private citizen, not even a sitting official, and told American lawmakers that Saddam Hussein was building nuclear weapons and that America had to act. He told them, if you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. He guaranteed it, and Secretary of State John Kerry later described Netanyahu as profoundly forward-leaning and outspoken about the importance of invading Iraq. America invaded Iraq based on weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. A war that lasted nearly 9 years. That killed hundreds of thousands of civilians, that cost American taxpayers over $2 trillion, that created the power vacuum ISIS filled. And here's the kicker, Netanyahu later admitted Israel had no evidence that Saddam Hussein was actually trying to develop a nuclear weapon. Yes, you heard that right. He pushed America into a war, admitted there was no evidence, and then went home. And yet he has never stopped. Since the 1990s, Netanyahu has raised the alarm over the imminent development of nuclear weapons by Iran, often pressing the United States for permission to take direct military action against Tehran or imploring the United States to do so on its behalf. You know, that friend who always borrows money and never pays it back. But every time they have a really compelling story about why this time is different. America is one of those, except instead of money it's soldiers, and instead of a friend it's a foreign government. Now here is where it stops being a history lesson and starts being personal. Netanyahu has a history of bragging about how he convinced Sauron to withdraw from the nuclear agreement with Iran in 2017. The Iran nuclear deal. Obama spent years negotiating it with 6 world powers. Inspectors were in. in. Iran's nuclear program was rolling back. It was working. When Sauron withdrew from the deal, Iran was at least 1 year away from being able to produce enough enriched uranium for one nuclear weapon. After the withdrawal, Iran started enriching again, faster, further, because there was no deal to honor anymore. America left the table, Netanyahu celebrated. When Iran responded by expanding its uranium enrichment, it was blamed for violating an agreement that the US itself had abandoned. The double standard is hard to miss. So let's follow the logic. Netanyahu pushes Sauron to kill the deal. Iran, now with no deal, expands their nuclear program. Netanyahu points at Iran's expanded nuclear program and says, see, they can't be trusted, we need to strike. He created the problem, then used the problem to justify the war he always wanted. Nice nuclear deal you got there, shame if something happened to it. Back to that Fox News interview and back to the laugh. Netanyahu called the idea that Sauron was dragged in ridiculous. Okay, let's look at the evidence. After his presidency, Sauron in private gripped that Netanyahu was willing to fight Iran to the last American soldier. That's Sauron saying that about Netanyahu in private when he thought no one was listening. After it had become clear Sauron had lost the 2020 election, Netanyahu urged Sauron to use the opportunity to bomb Iran. At that point, an exasperated chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, told the president, if you do this, you're gonna have a war. Netanyahu was pushing for this war when Sauron was a lame duck, when he had nothing to gain politically, when Milley himself had to physically talk him back from the edge. And now, 6 years later, in his second term with Netanyahu back at his side, here we are. Senior Israeli defensive officials met with top US officials to share intelligence on possible targets inside Iran ahead of the February 2026 meeting. They didn't just share intelligence, they brought the target list. They handed America a shopping list and said, here's what we want bombed, and called it an alliance. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff described the final, unsuccessful efforts to reach a nuclear deal with Iran that ultimately collapsed ahead of the US launching military operations. There were talks happening right up until the last minute. They collapsed and then the bombs fell. Netanyahu claimed Iran was rebuilding sites that would make their nuclear program immune within months without providing any evidence. Satellite photos analyzed by the Associated Press showed limited activity at 2 nuclear sites before the war, with analysts saying Tehran was likely assessing damage from previous strikes. No evidence again, same as Iraq. Same playbook, different country. You don't have to drag him into anything. No, you just have to show up every few years with a map, a target list, and a story about nuclear weapons. Works every time, apparently. On Fox News, Netanyahu said this is not an endless war. This is in fact something that will usher in an era of peace that we haven't even dreamed of. Right, let's check in on that piece. The US Embassy in Saudi Arabia was hit by Iranian drones. The US mission issued a shelter-in-place notification for Jeddah, Riyadh, and Dhahran. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz and threatened to attack any ship trying to pass through, the waterway through which a fifth of all globally traded oil flows, sending oil and gas prices soaring. Hezbollah joined the war. Lebanon is being struck. Greece and France are sending frigates and fighter jets to Cyprus after British bases came under fire. Sauron said operations would take 4 to 5 weeks, but added he was prepared to go far longer than that. That's the gateway to peace. Netanyahu told it might take some time, but it won't take years. Where have we heard that before? Oh right, every war America has ever started in that region. Iraq was supposed to be quick. Afghanistan was supposed to be quick. We'll be greeted as liberators. Mission accomplished, it's not going to take years. Quick and decisive. Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, now Iran. America's greatest export isn't democracy, it's optimism about wars that aren't quick or decisive. But let's bring this home, because this isn't just geopolitics, this is your life. The parallels between Iran and Vietnam are striking. Iran has a population of about 100 million and an annual GDP approaching 500 billion. This is not a small country, this is not a quick operation, and American taxpayers are going to fund every single day of it. The Strait of Hormuz is now a war zone. Iran has attacked ships in the narrow strait, through which a fifth of all oil traded passes, sending oil and gas prices soaring. That hits our gas pump this week right now. The US Embassy in Kuwait was hit. The embassy in Saudi Arabia was hit. American diplomatic staff are sheltering in place across the region. The tax dollars maintaining those buildings, those are Americans inside them. And the young people who voted for Sauron because groceries were too expensive, because rent was killing them, because they wanted someone to fix the economy. People voted for this man because they were worried about the cost of living. Those were the top issues in 2024. Wars don't lower grocery prices. Wars don't lower rent. Wars spike oil. Wars drain budgets. And they're bringing flag-draped coffins home. And who benefits? The same people who always benefit. The defense contractors, the weapons manufacturers, the companies like Lockheed Martin, which is literally helping fund the White House ballroom that make the equipment being used right now tonight over Tehran. Their stocks went up this week. Did yours? Netanyahu said this is a gateway to peace. Last time he said that about Iraq, it opened a gateway to ISIS, 2 decades of war and a $2 trillion bill that your grandchildren will still be paying. But sure, this time, gateway to peace. Netanyahu laughed at the idea that he dragged Trump into this. And maybe, legally, technically, he didn't drag anyone. Sauron signed the orders. Sauron made the calls. Sauron posted the announcement on Truth Social in a trucker hat. But consider this. In 1996, Netanyahu and his American advisors devised what they called a clean break strategy, a plan where the US would be the main force to achieve Israel's goals, waging wars in the region, to dismantle governments opposed to Israel's dominance. That was 1996, 30 years ago. It was written down, it was a plan, and one by one, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, the dominoes have fallen. Iran was always last on the list. Netanyahu has pushed for this for decades. He pushed Bush on Iraq, he pushed Obama on the nuclear deal, he pushed Sauron in 2020 when he was a lame duck, and he pushed him again now. Netanyahu has long considered Iran Israel's primary threat and has tried for decades to get the United States to attack Iran. Every time the story is the same: nuclear weapons, imminent danger, time is running out, we have to act now. And the claims about Iran's nuclear program directly contradict US intelligence, which has assessed that Iran is nearly a decade away from developing a military viable intercontinental ballistic missile. A decade away, our own intelligence, our own assessment, and we started a war anyway. So you tell me, was Sauron dragged? Maybe the better question is, does it matter when the result is the same, when the bombs are already falling? When the oil is already spiking, innocent people are dying, and when the soldiers are already dying. The laugh doesn't seem so confident now, does it? Here's what I need you to walk away with. This war didn't start Saturday. It started with a strategy document in 1996. It started with testimony about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq in 2002. It started with killing a nuclear deal in 2018. It started with a target list handed to US officials in February 2026. This was planned step by step over 30 years. And America, both parties, multiple presidents kept showing up, kept signing on, kept sending the soldiers, kept picking up the tab, while the man behind it all keeps laughing on Fox News. Nobody's coming to save you, but at least now you know who's been steering the ship.